Hi everyone, I'm Wendy Sadler from Science Made Simple. We're science communicators and we are passionate about connecting more people with research. And what I'm going to try and talk you through in this video is how to think about why people should care about your research. So we often call that finding a hook. You need to find some way to connect what you do with what people care about. So that's what we're going to be exploring. As well as that, we need to find ways to communicate what you do in a really concise, kind of short, snappy fashion. Sometimes people call it an elevator pitch. So we're going to suggest a 1-minute sort of structure for you that might help you come up with a way to produce some material that you can then go on to use for European Researchers' Night. Okay, so let's think about what we mean by a hook. So what I mean is us trying to understand what it is that lots of people care about. So trying to find the things that really matter to people and tapping into that and linking your research to those things. So if everyone just closes their eyes for 5 seconds, what I want you to do is close your eyes and conjure up the first 3 things that come to mind that are things that really enhance your life, enrich your life. Okay, close your eyes, 5 seconds. Okay, and open them up again. So even though whoever's watching this, we're all very different, and thankfully we all have different interests and opinions, but I can probably guarantee that there was an awful lot of common ground between the things that you thought mattered to you in your life or the things that were most important to you. And that's what we're really talking about with this hook. So for me, the things that came to mind were food, because that brings a lot of pleasure to my life, music, which I love, and my family, my kids and my dog. So those are the kind of things that often come up when you talk to people about what sort of makes them tick, what are they interested in their life, what do they care about in their life. So let's just share some thoughts on that and with some research. So hopefully you can see now. This is the Guardian homepage. So I just thought it was interesting as I was doing some research on another story that these were the 5 areas they felt were the most important and people were most likely to be looking for when they come to their page. So news, opinion, sport, culture, lifestyle. You can see science crops up in news and environment and things like that, and obviously football as well. So there's cross-linking there because sport has its own column. But that gives you one indication of, you know, the main things that lots of people are interested in, or at least in this case, Guardian readers are interested in. Another place we could look for clues, Google. Obviously, most people use Google to look for things. So Google has data on what we're all interested in. And if you go to trends.google.com, these are the ones I got today searching for this. And these are the top 10 trending things in the UK. So you can change the country if you're interested in other countries. These were the things that were trending in the UK. And as you can see, again, a lot of sports, celebrity, TV programs, that kind of thing comes up. So we know these are common ground in a lot of people in terms of what they're interested in. And how about if we look at what questions people ask on Google? So you know how if you type a question in, how to, what is, it tries to complete it by the most common questions that are asked. And this wasn't that recent. So this was done about a year ago, I think. This was the commonest questions that were asked on Google. So again, it gives you an idea of what kind of things people are looking for information on. So another place that we can get some interesting data is the Public Attitudes to Science survey. So this is a government report that is done about every 3 to 4 years. So this latest one was published in 2019. The data was collected pre-COVID, but I think the attitudes in there are still pretty relevant. I mean, things may have changed quite a lot. But at this point, 22% of people asked felt connected to science compared to 40% who feel connected to sport. So you can see that there's a much more bigger common ground, if you like, of interest in sport than there is in science. That's probably not a surprise to you. And of the people who said that science was just not for them, so that was 22%, nearly 40% of them felt they did connect to arts, culture and sport. So that means that if you're talking to an audience who isn't very pro-science or interested in science, you're more likely to connect to them by using those other topics. Another study done by Wellcome, this was the first global study into attitudes to do with science. And what I've just picked out a few of the findings here show us that although there's interest in science and people have sought information about it, there's usually a much higher interest in health, medicine, and disease than science in general. So if any of your work connects to quality of life, medical purposes, diseases, then you've got a better chance, if you like, of connecting to that part of what the public are interested in. And the last useful perhaps connection you can make, if you're talking about audiences, or if you're interested perhaps in influencing government audiences, international audiences, policymakers, maybe non-government organizations, then you probably will have come across the Sustainable Development Goals. So it would be pretty unlikely, I think, that any of you would be doing any research that doesn't feed into one of these goals. And these are the things that the world as a whole, if you like, have decided are important. So this is another sort of way of looking for how to connect what you do to something that's of wider interest. Once you've got your hook, we're now going to think about how you put it together into some sort of structure to give you a very quick intro to what you do and why people should care. So I'm going to just share a template with you that we found quite helpful. So you should be able to see some boxes on the screen. And we found that if you break your 60 seconds up into these sections, that makes quite a nice little pitch. So quite a good little elevator pitch. So the first bit is, what's the problem? What's the big picture? And you might have to step back from your research to the big problem. So it doesn't have to be your specific research. It could be something your whole group is working on or the whole world is trying to solve. Why is it a problem in the next box? And how does it affect people? So how many people each year are affected? How much does it cost countries each year in health? How much does it cost us to maintain something when it could be done a different way? That sort of thing. The third box is what's new. So what's been done before and what are you doing differently? So why is it new? And the last one is just something to leave people with, really. So something to think about, what do they do next? Do you want them to change their attitude? Do you want them to change their opinion on something? Do you want them to look for more information themselves? So you give them something to be doing, really, or something to do next, if you can. Right, so I'm just going to stop the share because I'm going to show you. So I would like you to grab a piece of paper, scrap paper, anything you've got around you. This one's A4, but it doesn't have to be. And then I want you to draw a sort of chair shape, like that, and then draw a line across the middle like that. So you've got a sort of brick design, and it's done that way because section 1 over here and section 4 here are the smaller parts, and section 2 and 3 are the bigger ones. So that gives you a sort of visual clue how much should go in each part. Remember, this whole thing is about 60 seconds, so you're only looking at about 150 words total if you were to write it out. So once you've got that, then we'll go through, I'll show you just a little example from a science research story that I like, that was one of my favorites this year. So I'll just share that. I don't know if any of you saw this story. This was, I think, a scientist from the University of Edinburgh. And one of the lead researchers was called Joanna Sadler, no relation, but I did pique my interest, wondering if we had any distant relatives in common. So this story was just about how scientists, I say just, I mean, it's an amazing story, how scientists have found a way to use enzymes, to use microbes to break down plastic waste and turn it into a product that we can use, a product called vanillin, which is what we use to flavour things with as vanilla. So it seemed like a really surreal kind of story, but it's one of my favourite science stories. So I just thought I'd use it as an example of how we would then break that down into a sort of 60-second structure. So if we look again at our boxes, so I came up with, what's the big problem? What's the big picture? So here's the hook. What is it? And the hook is really that everyone cares about plastic bottles on beaches, or the environment, or keeping the oceans clean. They've heard of microplastics. They're worried about them. So the hook is there. If you wanted to take a more light-hearted hook, you could use the hook of vanilla. So you could think about, when did you last have a vanilla ice cream? Did you think about where that vanilla comes from? And you could use a food hook as well. The second thing, why is it a problem? You could go into some of the numbers, like how many 1 million plastic bottles are sold every minute and only 14% are recycled. So you could go into a little bit of the scale of the problem there. The third box, what are you doing that's new? So I picked out a few things. They've basically made an advance that the enzymes can work at room temperature, whereas before they used to work at a very hot temperature. So now it's much more practical to use. They also use E. coli bacteria, which I thought was interesting because we always think E. coli is a bad thing. So it was nice to sort of put that on its head and say this could save us, this could be helpful. And then finally, as a call to action, what I thought was a few options. One might be, obviously, this could help us reduce the plastic waste, which would be good. A second outcome might be now think about microbes as a good thing because they could be saving the planet. So you're sort of changing beliefs. It might be that you want to change the attitude people have about chemists, and that chemists can do environmentally friendly work. They're not just about, creating pollution and things like that. So changing the image of chemists, you might want to sum up like that. Or maybe, again, coming back to the food hook, next time you're eating an ice cream or something with vanilla in, check whether it's vanilla or vanillin, which is the synthetic form. And perhaps in the future, that will be coming from plastic bottles. So that's sort of how I would break that example down. So I hope that's been useful. And once you've done your homework, you'll have a sort of ready-made piece of public engagement to do in any environment, but you might like to use it to take part in the European Researchers Showcase, which is a 48-hour social media marathon where they desperately need content from researchers that will go out across all of Europe and probably beyond. So if you'd like to get involved, just sign up using the link below on this website and someone from the Intersections team will be in touch. And if you want more help with your technical language or some tips about how to present on camera or making short videos, then have a look at some of the other videos that we've got on this website to help you. Good luck.